So this is using the clay creation slab roller. When I'm wedging a chunk of clay that I'm going to be moving to the slab roller, when I start pounding this out into a slab, I don't want to pound it out like this. I want to pound it out like this. So I'm taking my spiral and I'm squishing all that clay together. And I'm going to start by pressing this in to like the size of a paver. Now if you notice, my edges are starting to crack in places. I will tap my edges, very similar to what we were doing when we were hand rolling our slab.
May I ask a question really quickly?
Please do.
So you're going to take the amount of clay you want for each plate and you're going to do it separately for each plate, or are you just going to roll out a huge slab? So
the answer is yes. Whatever, it depends on how big of a slab I want to roll out.
I see.
You know.
I
But
understand.
now I'm going to take something like this to the slab roller.
How many pounds was that? I mean,
This was 4.5 pounds.
so that's how many plates?
This is going to be one plate.
Okay.
All right, then I'm going to stick a piece of fabric down. I do not want to put the piece of clay, can you see this? I don't want to put the clay near the edge of my fabric. I want to have it back a minimum of a hand span of clay. I do not want to fold over my fabric, because if I fold over my fabric, then the clay can't move this way, and sometimes when it goes through the rollers, it'll push them apart and break the gear system inside. So we don't want to fold over. We want to get a second piece of fabric. We want to lay it over the top. I'm then going to set these gauges to something considerably thicker than what I want my finished slab to be. So I'm going to go to 3/8 here, and I need to make sure the gauge on this side has the same number as this side. I'm then going to push on this, and I want to turn this wheel a little bit until the fabric comes through on both sides. Or I want to also make sure the fabric does not drop down into this groove. And I'm going to pull it until the clay hits it, and then I'm going to roll the handle. I'm just going to stretch out the clay, and then I'm going to give it a little tug and then roll it back.
Is there an ideal thickness for this?
We're going to go to 1/4 inch for our plate.
Okay.
I will then grab one of my ribs. Excuse me. This will work. And I will look for any air bubbles. If I'm not an excellent wedger, I always leave it thicker on my first roll so I can find any air bubbles that I might have and clean this up. I will look at both sides. Also, each time I go to a new thickness, I want to unstick it from the fabric. Move it back again because it had scooched forward, and it will scooch forward each time. Since we're going plate, I am going to rotate this because I want to get a more square cross section. I want to get a more square piece of clay. So I'm going to move this up, and I'm just going to look for air bubbles. I'm popping little air bubbles. If the air bubbles make a big mound, I will stab them with a needle tool and then compress. So we have our first thickness done. Now I'm going to go, oh, those were not even.
Uh-oh.
Those were not even. So I'm going to go a little bit thicker than 1/4 and a little bit thicker than 1/4. Put my piece of fabric over the top. Now, this has gotten wider than my fabric here, so I'm going to grab a needle tool. And I'm going to cut off just a little bit on the sides here. If I wanted to, I could reattach that, but for the time being, I'm just going to set that there, just so that the whole piece of clay is covered up and I won't have the raw clay touching the wheels. All right, we have it set to the same thickness on both sides. Make sure that fabric's not dropping down below. And then we roll it through. And then we roll it back. And we're going to check it with a rib. A couple of air bubbles.
Just a good wedger. No air bubbles, huh?
Well, there are some little air bubbles.
Ah.
When I pop air bubbles, I will always go all the way to the fabric. So when I push the air and compress back out, the air can get out of the clay, right? Otherwise, I'll just end up closing over the air pocket again and having another air pocket. Wow, plenty of bubbles. It's stuck to the fabric, so I need to remove it from the fabric before I go to my final thickness. So I'm gonna flip that over. I've got this little whoop-de-doo that happened here. I want to clean that up before, and I'm pulling the clay across the crease. I'm not going parallel with the crease, I'm going across the groove that was in my clay, and I'm pulling that clay together. And then we're going to put that fabric over the top, and we are going to set it to exactly to a 1/4 inch here, and exactly to a 1/4 inch there. And now it's just going to make it a little bit thinner. The thinner it gets, the more important it is going to be to turn these wheels to get the fabric to feed through the machine. And now we're at our final thickness. All right, now that we're at the final thickness, we're going to pick this up and bring it over here, and we are going to compress this one last time, and then we are going to get a bat. Can somebody grab me a bat? All right, we have a bat here. I'm going to set this over at the top of the bat. I'm going to put that on the bat. And just lightly compress that down. It's going to help me figure out where the edge of my bat is. And now I'm just going to, and we're done. No, just joking.
That's a good size plate.
Right? So scraps go underneath my wet towel. If that was wet, that would be the right thing to do.
Oh, I think that's my
It
towel.
happens not to be wet, but it should be wet. And now we're going to take this over to the wheel. And since Erica has perfectly set up wheel, can I use that? No.
Yeah, you can use it.
All right.
I
So,
don't have any throwing stuff that
we're going to find our bat pins. There's one bat pin. All right, so that's on there. So first thing we're going to do, we're just going to set this surface, and you know, sometimes I use a different rib than this, but this is not the rib I should use. You can see how this is all worn and it's leaving these lines in here.
Oh, I
But,
can give you a different rib. Would you like a different rib?
There's
Oh, yeah,
another
use-
one
Or
there.
Natalie, ooh, it has the nice bendy one.
Natalie's got a nice flexible metal rib, and I'm just going to, you know, clean up this surface a little bit, and then the needle tool. Gosh,
I was right there.
that's all right. Yeah, I'll take it. All right. So now I'm going to, you know, cut this to a perfect circle here, and we'll take this section off. I guess I could have made a slightly bigger plate, but this is plenty big for a dinner plate, right? Now I'm going to go around the whole thing, and I'm going to lift the edge up just a little bit. Going to go
Can
all the
you do
way
that with a tool while it's moving?
after I've lifted it up,
Okay.
right? So first thing I'm going to do is just going to get it so it's not stuck anywhere. Because if I try that immediately with a tool, it's sometimes stuck in one place more than another. And I just sort of get approximately the amount of clay that I want first off. And then I'm going to now use a tool, maybe a little bit of water on the inside there, and turn this into a cylinder with a gentle pull.
Is it offset? I mean, so
You are pulling up.
My bat,
getting
a hair. Is my bat not on? Oh,
I don't know.
my
There's
bat's
something.
not on.
Oh, I was like, it looks. It doesn't look.
Yeah, so my
All right.
bat is not on both bat pins. That's why the bat
Okay.
looks like the bat is off center. The plate is round,
That's good.
right? And it's a little bit off kilter like this, which is not ideal. But you know, this is getting the inside of my plate the way I want, and then I'm going to clean up this region. If I want it to look like a thrown plate, I would come in here and like give my finger markings, to make it look like a nicely thrown plate.
So nobody knows that you cheated.
Right, and then on this outside edge, now it's a matter of, like how do I want this outside edge to look? I could work this down to whatever shape I wanted for my plate. And I would do something like that. This would have worked a lot better had I had it on, both platforms.
But it worked.
But it worked, right?
That's cool.
So like we could go over this one more time, actually,
Oh, one of those.
if we do it this way.
I
Where the heck is that other pin?
So,
No, no.
I think once you get the rhythm of
Come
it,
on.
it's probably easier to prettier.
Where are you? Is that on? Are you on? You're not on. There it is. Woohoo! Now we're down. All right. So if we were making a smaller plate than this, we could go through this whole process one more time. Lift up the edge a little bit. Get your water and your sponge. Make your rim. Now this could be a dog roll too. I mean, you saw how much I lifted up. You could lift up more
Did you hear that, lady?
and make a dog roll. But I'm gonna thin this wall out just a little bit, clean up my rim, and now it's a matter of turning that into the shape, sort of flange I want on my plate. And I would do something like that.
Wow, that's really easy.
And
Wow.
that's making a plate from a slab.